Okay, Masechet Sukkah 15a. We begin with the Mishnah at the top. Tikra she'en aleha ma'aziva. So if we have a roof that has no plaster on it, if it has plaster, obviously that is not good sechach. So that would be a permanent roof. What we're talking about in your house, you have just wood planks that are there permanently, maybe they're nailed down, and you want to convert it into a sukkah. So this is similar to what we talked about yesterday, where you're making a sukkah out of planks. Here, it's your actual house with planks. What do you have to do to convert it? If you have cement, forget about it. Plaster, forget it. But if you don't, here's what you have to do. There's two opinions, the Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Within the Rabbi Yehuda, he reports a machloket between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Rabbi Yehuda omer, Bet Shammai omerim, mefakpek venotel achat mebentayim. So mefakpek means you have to move each of the boards. If they're nailed down, undo the nails, or move them around a little. The word lefakpek is also used nowadays to say if you're skeptical about something. It means that there's a principle that everyone thinks is true, and you're mefakpek. You're moving it around, right? You're undoing it. So that's the metaphorical meaning. But it also means to physically move the board. Why would you have to physically move the board? Well, because you put it down originally when you built the house as a permanent house. And so now you have to basically take it off and put it back. Well, you don't have to take it off altogether and put it back. Just by moving it around, now you're saying, I intend it as sechach. That's one. Venotel achat mibentayim. And furthermore, you have to remove every other board. We have a picture of that. And put kosher schach in between. So that you have as much kosher schach as these boards. Okay, it doesn't say how big the boards are. We'll assume 4 tefachim because that is the standard amount. And so the reason why you have to take away every other board is because of the gezerah we mentioned yesterday, gezerat tikra, that if you use all boards, then people are going to say, oh, this looks the same as my house. I may as well just go into my house. So it looks like Bet Shammai does have that gezerah. Now, the truth is, once you're moving every other, so why do you even need, once you're replacing every other with kosher sechach, why do you even need to move the boards that you're leaving there, right? To just say they're not kosher sechach, oh, it's okay. They're 4 tefachim, and they, I have a majority. So the Gemara is going to ask that very question. Why do you need both? Bet Hillel already answers it. Bet Hillel omerim mefakpek o notel achat mi bentayim. Either or. Okay, looks like he does not have a problem of gezerat tikra because he doesn't require that you do both. If you just move it around, so then you put them there for sechach, even if they're all planks, that's okay. So it doesn't have gezerah. Or if you don't want to move them around and you don't want to undo them all, so undo every other one and put kosher sechach. So you have non-kosher, kosher, non-kosher, kosher. So that's also good. So you could do either or. All that is according to the Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yehuda thinks it is a machloket. The Rabbi Meir, however, who was more machmir yesterday, he's more machmir today too. Omer notel achat mibentayim ve'eno mefakpek. You have to remove every other board and put kosher sechach. Don't bother moving them. There's no such thing as moving them. And he doesn't think it's a machloket Bet Hillel or Bet Shammai. There's no moving. There's no moving anything.
It's only remove.
It's only remove. If you have you're in your house, right, and you have the boards, remove every other and put kosher sechach. That's the minimum requirement. Anything less than that, don't even bother. It's not going to help you. Good. So it sounds like it'd be made. No. The ones that every other one that you're leaving there can be nailed. Right.
The original nail.
Because it's schach pasul, but you're allowed to have schach pasul up to 4 tefachim as long as there is as much or more kosher sechach, right? So you wouldn't even have to do that. So you see that the Rabbi Meir sounds like he does have gezerat tikra, right? And the Rabbi Yehuda, according to Bet Hillel, does not have the gezerah of tikra. All right, so that now we're set up well for the Gemara discussion. Bishlama Bet Hillel ta'amahu mishum ta'aseh velo min he'asui. Okay, so there's another factor of why you would need to move them and not have them there. So Bet Shammai, we understand his reason. You have to make a sukkah, and it can't be made by something that was pre-existing. And so therefore, if you remove every other and put new sechach, then you'll be perfectly fine. Bet Hillel, right? Is Bet Hillel. So either one. If you move around all of them, then that's fine. Right now, even though originally you put them there for permanent for a house, but now you're moving them, so you're making it ta'aseh velo min ha'asui. So that's fine. Fine. Inotel achat mi bentayim abad ba'ma'aseh. And if you take every other, you also did. So that's why Bet Hillel says either or. In both cases, you're making the sukkah. Ella bet Shammai mai ta'amaihu. Imishum ta'aseh velo min ha'asui behada sagi. Imishum gezerat tikra benotel achat min bentayim sagi. But we can't understand Bet Shammai. Why would you need both? If he has the principle that you have to make it and not being made, so one or the other, either one works to make your sukkah. And if he does have the gezerah that it looks like a house and you're going to go into your house, then you have to take out every other one, and just moving all of them is not going to help. So there's no reason to move all of them. Bet Shammai really should just agree with what Rabbi Meir says, that you have to remove every other. What's the point of also moving them and taking them off? Okay, le'olam mishum gezerat tikra. V'achi kamre, afa pisha mefakpek, ino telachat min bentayim, in ila la. So we're changing the words or understanding a little to say, yes, in fact, that is the case. What Bet Shammai meant to say is, even if you move every single board, you still have to remove every other one and put new sechach. It's still not, it is like Bimir.
He said no, because there is no movement, that's meaningless.
Right, but this also, so he's saying, even if you do move them all, doesn't help, you have to do every other. But really all you have to do is every other. You don't have to move.
Would agree with every other.
Rabbi Meir says every other. That's exactly what he says, right? Right.
That
So we're rereading it to say, Bet Shammai didn't really mean that moving them all does anything. It's really the every other. Okay, fine. Now, if that's what Bet Shammai means, then that's the same as Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir omer no telachat b'bentayim aval lo yefakpek. Rabbi Meir, hainu Bet Shammai. Does it make sense that Rabbi Meir should be following Bet Shammai? Bet Shammai is earlier than Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is fourth generation Tana. He's a student of Rabbi Akiva, who's the third generation. And his student is Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who's the fifth and last generation. So Bet Shammai Shammai himself is even pre the first generation. He's like from the year zero. Bet Shammai is his school that lives on after him, but even his school is earlier than.
So you could follow him. He was before him.
Yeah, he could follow him. He was before him, but he's Bet Shammai. So usually we don't follow Bet Shammai lahalacha. So it doesn't, we want to help Rabbi Meir and not think that he's following Bet Shammai. That would be very unusual. So Hachika Amad, Lo Nechliku Bet Shammai or Bet Hillel badabar zeh. What Rabbi Meir meant to say is that Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai agree regarding this matter. So he's not following Bet Shammai only, he's following Bet Hillel. So in effect, there's a machloket about, everyone agrees about what Bet Shammai says, that you have to remove every other. And there's a machloket about what Bet Hillel thinks. According to Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah, you can do, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Bet Hillel, you can do one or the other, right? So that means he doesn't have gezerat tikra, but he does think you need ta'aseh velo min ha'asui. So you have to do something, but you can leave all the planks there and just move them all. And according to Rabbi Meir, Bet Hillel agrees with Bet Shammai and think that there is both ta'aseh velo min ha'asui and gezerat tikra. So you cannot have all the boards there, even if you move them, you have to remove every other. Good. So now we clarified all that. So we clarified our Mishnah, but now we have a question. How does this Mishnah relate to the previous Mishnah that we learned yesterday? Mai kamash ma'lan. So what is this Mishnah informing us in this case? That according to the Rabbi Meir, he thinks everyone agrees, and there is gezerat tikra. So that's why you can't just move the boards. You have to remove every other one because you can't use boards. Boards are basically pasul. And so the Rabbi Meir is machmir on that. And Rabbi Yehuda thinks that according to Bet Hillel, there is no gezerat tikra, and you could just move everyone around and leave them there. And if that's the case, ifligu ba'chada zimna. But we already know that from the previous Mishnah. Titnan mesakechin ben nesarim tibre Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda meir osir. In yesterday's Mishnah said that if you make a new sukkah and you use planks, let's follow Rav now. Remember Rav said yesterday that they're using 4 tefachim. Why? That's what they're arguing on. So let's assume that now. The Gemara is going to ask about Shemuel in a minute. So right now we're assuming that they're 4 tefachim. And the Mishnah yesterday said, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's fine because there's no Gezerat Tikra. Rabbi Meir said it's a problem because there is Gezerat Tikra. Well, that's exactly what you just learned from this Mishnah. So what do you need? Two Mishnayot that tell us the same thing? That's redundant. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Resha b'nesarim meshupin askinan, umishum gezerat kelim nagu ba. Oh, a totally different understanding of our Mishnah yesterday. Scratch everything we said. And actually, the previous Mishnah was talking about boards that were plain, that were shaven down and made nice, so that like furniture quality, and so that you might think it looks like a vessel, and then you make a mistake.
More permanent, like maybe rough.
No, that's a vessel, and if it's a vessel, it's mekabel tum'ah, and then it's not good. Now the truth is that it's not a vessel because anything that's made out of wood is not a vessel until it's a receptacle that can hold something. If it's flat, just a flat thing, it's not. Like the arrow that has something in it, right? Good. So the truth is it's not a receptacle, but because it looks finished, because it's planed, therefore someone looking will say, oh, that's a vessel, it's a piece of furniture, and that's allowed. Oh, I'm going to go get my wooden bowls and put them on also, and wooden spoons, and I put those on also, and all that's not allowed. So it's a gezerah, that you might come to do that. And that's the machloket that Rabbi Yehuda says, no, there's no gezerah, you can use this finished wood, and Rabbi Meir says, no, you cannot use the finished wood because of the gezerah. That was yesterday's Mishnah. Today's Mishnah is actually about the gezerah of roofs. Gezerat Tikra, exactly. Okay, good. So now that is acceptable according to some, but not according to everybody. Rav Yehuda amar Rav, da amar sikecha bechisin zecharim keshera b'nekevot pesula. Exactly what the example you said. But if you remember, Rav said that if you use the zecharim, the shafts of the arrows that are convex, that's okay because they have no receptacle. But you cannot use the ones that are concave, right? Because those do have a receptacle. And Rav did not make a gezerah that, don't allow the male ones because then you might allow the female, the concave ones. So if you don't make a gezerah there, this is basically the same thing. It's something that looks like it's mekabel tum'ah, that it's furniture, but it's not. And so if you don't make a gezerah there, then you shouldn't make a gezerah here. And so forget this whole gezerah altogether. So then you can't say that they had a machloket about the gezerah. So we go back to our original understanding. No, yesterday's Mishnah was as we first understood about Gezerat Tikra. So it's good we didn't erase all that. And this Mishnah also is about Gezerat Tikra. And why do we talk about it twice? Sefar Rabbi Yehuda he deka amar le Rabbi Meir amai ka'asat benesarim mishum gezerat tikra hai sevara lebet Shammai hu deit le ubet Hillel la gazre. So really, this Mishnah is a continuation of the previous Mishnah. When we read Mishnah, we have the Gemara separating it. But if you read Mishnah only, right, it continues straight through. And sometimes they state their positions and then they argue with each other. So actually, this our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda coming and saying to the Rabbi Meir, how could you say a gezerah of tikra and that you can't use it? That is what Bet Shammai says, right? So what, are you agreeing with Bet Shammai? You shouldn't do that. I'm following Bet Hillel, and he does not make a gezerah. And to that, Amar Rabbi Meir, lo nechluko bet Shammai or bet Hillel b'davar zeh. Rabbi Meir says, no, I don't think that they argued on this. I think Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai agree that there is gezerat tikra. So therefore, it's not repetitive. It's just a continuation explaining all their reasoning. Okay, you see how we couldn't have said this unless we said the beginning of the Sukkah, where we established that that is what Rabbi Meir's reasoning is. He thinks there's no machloket.
So what's the difference between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel anyway? They both agreed that you'd have to remove every other one, but they disagree about being mefakfek. That's the whole thing. Because Bet Shammai will say you can't do that. Bet Shammai is not there. That's
Right.
the difference, really, at the end of it.
Correct. According to the Rabbi Meir, they're the same. According to the Rabbi Yehuda, Bet Hillel says you could do one or the other because he does not have gezerat tikra. He's okay without it, right? And Bet Shammai says no, there is gezerat tikra, so you can't just move them. You have to remove each and every other one. According to the Rabbi Meir, both Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai think that there is gezerat tikra, and therefore you have to remove every other. Moving them around is not going to help any.
Can I just ask you a question? Like, what is the reason? Like several times here, like in the English, when it says Shammai and Hillel, they don't say agree, but they say did not disagree.
Oh, lo nechleku b'davar zeh. Right, lo nechleku.
Is-
I think that's as opposed to Rabbi Yehuda, who says they do disagree.
Right.
Rabbi Yehuda says they
agree.
disagree. I think they do not disagree.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, you could say it in a more positive. You're always upbeat and optimistic, so you want to say things in a positive way, right? Okay, yeah, but it's the same thing. Hanicha lerav. Okay, this whole discussion we've had now is all according to Rav, who we mentioned yesterday. Damar machloket b'sheyesh bahen arba'a. Rabbi Meir it legezerat tikra, Rabbi Yehuda let legezerat tikra. That the difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is about when the plank is 4 tefachim wide, and Rabbi Meir says in that case, gezerat tikra looks like a roof, and Rabbi Yehuda says no. That was all according to Rav, and so we explained both Mishnayot well according to Rav. Ela Shemuel damar b'she'en behen arba'a machloket, avayesh behen arba'a dibra kol pesula sefa b'mai pelige. But Shemuel yesterday said that if it's 4 tefachim wide, everyone agrees it's no good. That's a plank, that's building material, it's not impossible, you can't use that. And the machloket was if it's between 3 and till 3.9, right? That is the machloket. So then, in our case, what are they even talking about? There's no gezerat tikra if it's less than 4, right? What's the?
No good completely.
It's 4 is no good completely. So they must be talking about a case where it's smaller. So right, what is the machloket about? And the answer is bibitule tikra kami palge. Mor sabar batla behachi, or mor sabar behachi la batla. The question is, if you have a house that's built already, how do you undo its designation as a house? So is it enough to just move it around, or you have to remove every other one altogether? So it makes perfect sense to say that when you're building a sukkah from new, there's certain things that you can do that are okay that you couldn't do or it's already built as a house, and now you have to undo it, right? So that's the idea. So when you're negating the definition of the house, is it enough to move it around, or do you have to actually take it off and put new sechach? Okay, good. Next Mishnah. Hamkareh sukato b'shvudin or b'aruchot hamita im yesh revach benehen kemotan keshera. So let's look at that case. First, if you use for sechach metal sticks or pieces of your bed. So let's see the picture here. By the way, this is Nesarim Mishupadim, the finished off ones. And here's our case. So shipudin, that will be metal sticks. And arukot mitaz, you take the bed frame, half of it. It's a bed frame that's broken. And so this would be a long piece of the frame. It still has the leg sticking on it, right? And can you use that? And so the answer is no. This would be this is still furniture. So we're going to talk about this because technically furniture that you take apart and is no longer furniture, then it's not mekabel tumah anymore, right? Anything that was a vessel, but you break it, is no longer a vessel. So yet this says that you cannot use this. We'll see why. Okay, so in this case, you see that we have the same amount of good sechach as metal or furniture, non-kosher sechach. So as long as there's the same amount, keshera. That's interesting that you don't need 51%. Even 50-50 is okay. We'll talk about that too. Hachotet begadish lasot lo sukkah ena sukkah. This is a famous case we already mentioned a couple of times, that if you have a pile of hay, pre-existing pile of hay, and then you dig out from underneath space. So this is the classic case of ta'aseh v'lo min ha'asui. You're using pre-existing material. You didn't actually put the sechach on. You just actually created the hole under it. That is not a sukkah. Good. Now, lema tevet yubta de Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua. Teitemar parus keomed. Rav Papa amar mutad, Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua amar asur. Okay, so we seem to have a question from this Mishnah that we're going to pose to Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Yoshua, because we have a braita. This braita is, sorry, not a braita, a statement of Amoraim that is talking about Hilchot Shabbat. In Hilchot Shabbat, when you're going to make an eruv, so you can, so you're allowed, you want to make a fence, right? That's around. So the law is that you have to have more standing than open. You can have openings. You can have a doorway, right? You can have windows. You can all kinds of things. But as long as there's more standing than not, then it's considered good for an eruv. To make a courtyard. Now the question is, what if it's exactly half-half? That is a machloket, and Rav Papa says it's okay. So you see, Rav Papa, if we transfer, we're going to compare Shabbat to Sukkah, which we're doing a lot, and that would be fine here too. But according to Rav Huna, who says that in Hilchot Shabbat you need 51% standing, and so here also it should be a problem because you have 50% sechach pasul and 50% sechach kasher. You should need 51%, shouldn't you? Okay, it's a good question to Rav Huna. Amar lecha Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua, mai kimotan benichnas veyoseh. When it says that it's as much this as that, doesn't mean exactly as much. There's a little bit more kosher sechach. That the kosher sechach has room to move, push in and out. There's a little wiggle room, right? If it was exactly, you had 4 tefachim this and then 4 tefachim or the other, and it was exactly, it would be stiff, hard to get in and out. But it means that the non-kosher, the metal part, is a little bit less to give breathing space for the kosher sechach. So that's what, therefore, it is 50%, 50.5% kosher sechach, and that's what the Mishnah means. Okay, quick question on that. Wait, can you be so exacting that you're leaving a little wiggle room? No, no, maybe he's on purpose. He's extending, putting a little bit more space. Okay, basically the same thing, but he's doing it on purpose, leaving more space for the kosher sechach. That's one answer. Rava amar afilu tema b'she'en ma'adif. Im hayu netunin sheti noten arev. Arev noten sheti. He says, even if it's exactly half-half and you didn't put any extra, if you put them crosswise in different directions, like this picture. So you have the non-kosher chach is going this way, and the kosher sechach is going this way. So because of that, there's some area of overlap. So that area of overlap, you can consider, that's kosher sechach, and so there's more kosher sechach overall than non-kosher sechach. So so looking at that, even though right under there is not, but it's a mixture. So if you take total kosher sechach and total non-kosher sechach, there's more kosher than non-kosher, even though parts of it are overlapping. Okay, so that is Rava's answer. And now we'll get to the furniture. This Mishnah supports the following opinion. Sikecha bivla'e kelim pesula. Bila'e kelim means worn out vessels. Let's say you take a shirt that's all worn out and you tear it up into small pieces and use it as rags. Can you put that on your sukkah? No, still pesula, right? Or whatever, anything else. You can't take pieces of things and put them on. So this is interesting that the law of sechach is not technically if it's mikabel tumah or not. If it ever was mikabel tumah, was a vessel, even if it's broken, it's still no good. So you see that our Mishnah seems to follow this because we have the case of bedposts, which are made out of wood, this should be fine, and now you're breaking it, it's not mekabel tuma anymore. Nevertheless, because it was a vessel, still not allowed.
Pre-existing conditions.
Very good. That's a good title. Kide amar Rav Chanan amar Rabbi Barucha ushne. So the answer is not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily support Rabbi Ameh, right? He has his opinion, but we don't have to bring proof because our Mishnah could be talking about a case where the bed was not fully dismantled. Barucha ushne cheraim, biksara ushne cheraim, uhachaname barucha ushne cheraim, biksara ushne cheraim. He said it could be talking about a case where you took, where's a picture of a bed here? Right, either you take the long side, depending on how it's constructed, either the long side with its two legs or the short side with two legs. If you just have one beam, then forget about it. That's nothing. Maybe I guess you could use that. But if you have a whole entire bed headboard, right, then that is still considered useful according to Rav Chanan. Where did he say this? Kedamar Rabbi Chanan Amar Rabbi. Right, so that's why I just read that. We're quoting it here from somewhere else that he said it. So what's the original place where he said it? Oh, it was a Mishnah. On this Mishnah, Ahaditnan, Mita metamet chabila umetahedet chabila debre Rabbi Eliezer. Hachamim omerim metamet ebarim umetahedet ebarim. That's the Mishnah. And it means that a bed can become tameh when it's all together. In other words, when it's constructed together and something tameh touches it, it's a vessel, becomes tameh. And if you want to make it tahor, you have to put it into a mikveh all together as one. You got to find a big mikveh and dunk the whole thing in. Take it to the ocean. That's according to the Rabbi Eliezer. He's machmir about this. Chachamim say, even if it's in pieces, it can become tameh, and you can kosher it in pieces too. So, so you see that if we follow the Chachamim, even a bed that's in pieces can still acquire tumah. The flip side is you can put it into mikveh that way too. Okay, by the way, this is the famous Rabbi Eliezer from the oven of Achnai story, and that actually is the same principle. Remember the oven of Achnai, the lo b'shamayim hi? In that case, the oven of Achnai is an oven that is made out of rings of clay that you stack on top of each other. And Rabbi Eliezer said, this oven cannot become tameh. Ovens were a big problem in those days because they're very expensive, hard to make, and one dead rat comes and goes inside it, and the whole thing you have to break. So he said, if you put rings on top of each other, each ring doesn't become tameh, so the whole thing doesn't become tameh. So it was untameable oven. This was a great thing. But Chachamim argued on him, and they voted against him and said, no, you're wrong, and it's tameh, and they forced him to retract his opinion, excommunicated him, even though he made miracles and made the aqueduct flow the other way, right? So you see that it's basically the same principle here, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, it only becomes tameh if it's all together. If it's in pieces, the pieces do not become tameh. Okay, so that is the Mishnah. And Ma'inihu, what are we talking about when he said pieces? Even if you cut it up into little pieces, according to Chachamim, it doesn't get tameh? No. Amar Rabbi Chanan, Amar Rabbi, Aruka ushne kera'ayim, kesara ushne kera'ayim. Either the long beam with legs or the short beam with legs, but you need a full piece of a frame, a headboard, a footboard, something in order to be considered still a vessel. If you take it and put it into pieces altogether, then forget about it. And so that's the original source that he said it, and we're applying it here too. When the Mishnah says you can't put pieces of a bed on your sechach, it means it's talking about a whole piece with two legs. Okay, now the Mai Chazia, what is that useful for? That you're still calling it furniture. Well, you can take it, let's say this headboard, lean it against the wall a little bit far from it, and then you can put a board lying on it and the other edge stuck into the wall, right? Or stick something and put rope around it. And you can sit on it or lie down on it. You can use it as kind of half a bed leaning on the wall, with the wall being the other side. No, not on top of the sukkah. No, because you could use it even without the rest of the frame. a half of a frame is still useful because if you have a wall, you could lean it on the wall and still make a bed out of it or a chair out of it. So since it's still useful as furniture, even though it's not a bed, it's still a kili. And therefore, if you put that on your sukkah, then it's still no good. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.